Every photo, every story, every caption said he loved me, but it was all for the likes. I wasn't his girlfriend, I was just part of his image. And the truth I uncovered, no one could believe. Everyone thought I was the luckiest girl alive. I mean, look at us on social media, right? Every post, every picture looked like a fairy tale, like we were that couple. People dreamed to be, he was handsome, confident, charming, and his captions always said things like, my queen, or couldn't do life without her, and honestly, I believed him every single word. When I first met Ryan, it was at a campus cafe. He walked in wearing this white shirt, rolled sleeves, looking like he owned the room. His smile reached his eyes, and when he talked, everyone listened. He told me he was studying marketing, but ran a side business doing brand collaborations. I thought, wow, he's ambitious and humble. The kind of guy who makes things happen. Our relationship started slow, but he made everything feel special. We'd go to places just to take photos together, cute brunches, beach walks, fancy dinners, and every picture ended up online within hours. He said it was for memories, but sometimes it felt like the memories weren't real unless they were posted. I'd ask, can't we just enjoy the moment? And he'd smile, saying, babe, people love our vibe, we're goals. And maybe that's when I started believing in the version of us that existed online more than the one in real life. He'd get hundreds of likes every time, and brands started messaging him for sponsorships. I was proud of him, but also a little scared because I noticed something changing. He started caring more about how things looked than how they felt. I'd laugh at something, and he'd stop me saying, wait, do that again. I didn't get the video right, it's for the real. At first it was funny, then it became exhausting. I'd spend hours getting ready for pictures when all I wanted was to just talk, just be together without filters, without lights, without hashtags. Then came the first red flag. One night we were at dinner, he left his phone face down on the table, which he never did. I didn't think much until it buzzed twice and a message flashed just long enough for me to read the name Claire PR Collab, but the message didn't look like work. It said, miss you already. He quickly turned the phone off, smiled and said, just business, don't overthink it. But something inside me shifted that night. I felt it, the version of him on my feed and the version sitting across from me didn't match anymore. He dropped me home, kissed my forehead, said he loved me, then got in his car and drove off. I remember watching his taillights fade, thinking maybe I'm imagining things, maybe social media isn't lying, maybe I'm just being insecure. But deep down, a voice whispered, maybe the truth isn't picture perfect after all. Have you ever felt like someone's online life didn't match who they really were? The next few weeks felt strange, like something invisible stood between us. I couldn't explain it, but I started watching him more closely, not in a jealous way, just observant. He was always online, always posting, replying to comments, talking about new brand deals. And yet with me, he seemed distant, distracted, like he was performing a role he didn't want to break character from. He started calling me his muse on stories, tagging me in posts with captions that sounded too perfect, too polished, like they were written for an audience, not for me. Sometimes I'd ask, who are you writing this for? And he'd laugh, saying, babe, for you, obviously. But I could feel it. It wasn't for me. It was for them. The followers, the likes, the world that adored him. One day I went over to his apartment. He was setting up a camera and lights in the living room. He looked stressed, sweating a bit, but when he saw me, he instantly smiled. Camera smile, bright, practiced. He said he was recording a brand partnership vlog, but when he played the clip back, I noticed something on his laptop screen behind him. A message notification popped up for a second. It said, hey, same time tomorrow? And the name was Claire again. I felt my chest tighten, but I didn't say anything. I waited till he finished filming, then asked casually, who's Claire and why does she keep texting you? He laughed again, said she's a PR agent, nothing else. You know how networking works, right? And maybe I did. Maybe she was. But that message didn't sound like business, and the way he avoided eye contact told me more than words ever could. Later that night, we went for a walk, and I tried to bring it up again. He said, I'm just tired, can we not do this tonight? And I said fine, but my mind didn't stop. I couldn't sleep that night. I opened his latest Instagram post. It had a caption saying, my world, my everything, with a photo of us at the beach taken 2 weeks ago, comments flooded in couple goals, dream love. And I stared at that photo, wondering how many lies fit inside a single square picture. The next morning, I got a message from one of his followers, a girl I'd never seen before. It said, hey, just so, Ryan isn't who he says he is. I thought it was some troll trying to start drama, but she sent a screenshot of her DMs with him. He'd been flirting, calling her beautiful, promising collabs, and even said he was single. I felt my stomach drop, my hands shaking. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was right there in front of me. When I confronted him, he said it was just friendly networking. But no friend says you look stunning. I wish I was with you right now. I told him this isn't love, this is performance. He said you're overreacting, you don't understand the influencer world. And maybe I didn't, but I knew what betrayal felt like. Would you have confronted him right away or waited to gather more proof before saying anything? The next few days I tried to act normal, but everything felt off. His smile looked staged, his words too smooth. Even his hugs felt like rehearsed moments meant for photos. Instead of feelings, he posted more than ever. And every caption was about loyalty, love, and trust. Like he was writing scripts to cover the silence growing between us. I didn't comment or share any of it. I just watched one afternoon. He invited me to a launch event for a skincare brand. He said it would be fun and that I could help him film content. I agreed, hoping maybe we'd reconnect, but from the moment we arrived, it was chaos, flashing lights, influencers posing drinks, laughter filters everywhere. Ryan was in his element, shaking hands, taking selfies, and complimenting everyone. I stood there invisible behind the ring light. When he finally came to me, he whispered, smile, babe, and pulled me close for a story post. I smiled, but it wasn't real. The second the camera turned off, he walked away to talk to another creator, leaving me holding his jacket. I wandered to the bar just to breathe, and that's when I saw her, Claire. She was real tall, blonde, confident, and when she saw me, her face changed for a second. Like she wasn't expecting me there. She walked over all smiles and said, you must be Maya. Ryan talks about you a lot. I smiled back, pretending not to notice the tension under her voice. Later, when Ryan joined us, he looked shocked, almost panicked. He said, "Oh, you two met already." "Yeah, Claire's been helping me with my brand. She's amazing." I said, "Yes." She mentioned that. Her eyes met his, and something unspoken passed between them, something that made my stomach twist. That night after the event, he dropped me home again, silent the whole ride. I asked, "Are you hiding something from me?" And he said, "No." Why would I then turned up the music loud enough to kill the conversation? I couldn't sleep again. My mind replayed every look, every smile, every post. I opened his account, scrolled back months, and realized something strange. All his trips, his dinners, his gifts, even the ones he said he bought for me, were collaborations, sponsored staged moments. Nothing personal about them. He'd built an entire life of illusions, one where I was just another prop. I finally messaged the girl who'd warned me earlier. I asked, "How long has he been doing this?" She said, "Too long. He uses people to build his image. Once he's done, he moves on." That's when it hit me. Maybe I wasn't the girlfriend. Maybe I was just the aesthetic, the girlfriend experience. And for the first time, I didn't cry. I just felt empty, like someone had taken the real version of me and replaced her with pixels. If you discovered your partner used your relationship for online fame, would you expose them or quietly walk away? I couldn't take it anymore. The lies, the fake posts, the staged life, the way he acted like he loved me in public but vanished in private. I needed answers. I needed the truth one night. I told him we had to talk. I could see in his eyes the moment he realized this wasn't going to be like any other argument. I said, "Ryan, I know about Claire. I know about the messages, the lies, the fake life, the vacations that weren't real. Everything I know." And he froze. His face went pale, like someone had pushed him off a cliff. I waited for him to speak, but he didn't. I said, "Look at me. Ryan, stop hiding behind the camera. Stop hiding behind your posts, behind your followers. I want the real you, not the one everyone else adores." And he laughed nervously, saying, "It's not what it looks like. It's complicated." I said, "Complicated isn't lying to the person you say you love." I said, "Every post, every story, every caption, it's all a show, isn't it?" He tried to interrupt, but I didn't let him. I said, "Tell me the truth right now. No filters, no camera, no audience." And that's when it happened. The truth spilled out. He admitted Claire was more than a collaborator. He said he enjoyed the attention she gave him, said some trips were staged, said some gifts were rented props, said his social media life was built to impress, not to live. And I felt like the ground beneath me disappeared. I felt angry, sad, betrayed all at once. And part of me wanted to scream while the other part wanted to vanish from the world. I asked him, "How long has this been going on?" He said, "Too long." I asked, "Why me? Why lie to me?" He said, "I didn't understand the business. It wasn't personal, and I wanted to hit him. I wanted to shake him, but I just stood there, tears streaming silently, because I realized that the person I loved wasn't the person I knew, and the person I knew had never really existed." The next days were awkward. Every word between us felt heavy, like we were both trapped in this invisible web. He posted more online, smiling in pictures while at home. Our conversations were short, forced, polite small talk. I started documenting everything in my mind, screenshots, messages, timelines, everything I needed proof of what I had already felt. The betrayal made me feel like I was losing my own mind. Sometimes I wondered if I was imagining things or if social media had finally destroyed reality. And yet deep down, I knew one thing. I had to decide whether I wanted to fight for the person hiding behind the posts or fight for myself to leave the illusion behind. Would you try to save a relationship built on lies or leave and reclaim your own reality? After that confrontation, I couldn't stop thinking about everything I had seen. I needed to know how deep the lie went. I started going through his posts, old captions, old pictures. Everything seemed perfect until I noticed patterns, trips he took that didn't match, locations. He tagged brands that didn't exist, even some friends and photos I had never met before. And the way he spoke about his life online was always exaggerated. I realized his entire social media presence was a carefully crafted fiction. One night, I decided to follow a lead. I remembered seeing a post about a business trip to another city. I checked the photos, geotags, and timestamps, and none of it matched hotel receipts or anything real. It was like he was living a parallel life for everyone else, a life I wasn't allowed to see. I started feeling like I didn't even know him at all. I reached out to one of the followers who had tagged him in the post. She told me he had borrowed the location from another influencer's account and recreated it for his story posts. She said he does it a lot, makes people believe he's constantly traveling, successful, charming, and perfect. And I realized I had been living inside a bubble. He was selling me a story I had thought was real. The next day, I confronted him gently. I said, "Ryan, why all the lies? Why make everything look so perfect?" He said, "It's how the world works. You have to sell yourself." I said, "I don't want to sell anything. I want love. I want honesty." And he laughed bitterly, said, "People love the illusion. The real world isn't interesting enough," and I felt the anger build inside me. Then I noticed another pattern. His relationship with Claire wasn't just flirtation. It was a network to create content to get attention, likes, followers, engagement. Every message, every meeting had layers. I hadn't imagined he wasn't just cheating. He was performing a business of lies with people I thought were friends, a life that was nothing like the one he had promised me. It broke me to realize I had been living inside someone else's fantasy. I remembered all the posts of us, the captions that made me blush, the selfies on beaches, the romantic dinners, and I realized I had been a character in a story I didn't write. I wasn't the girl he loved. I was the girl everyone else loved online. That night, I sat alone scrolling through his accounts, comparing the pictures to reality, and finally, I understood the full extent of the lie. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and strangely awake, like someone had pulled the curtains back and revealed the stage lights. I didn't know if I could forgive him, or if I wanted to even see him again. I only knew that everything I thought I knew had changed forever. Have you ever realized someone you loved was living a completely different life online than in real life? How would you feel? I couldn't stop thinking about everything I had uncovered. The fake trips, the staged posts, the messages to Claire, the entire social media persona built like a house of cards. And I realized I had to do something. I couldn't just stay quiet anymore, pretending everything was fine. Every time I saw him smiling for the camera, my stomach twisted because I knew the person behind that smile didn't exist. I started writing down everything, every message, every post, every detail. I could remember screenshots and timestamps. I felt like a detective piecing together a puzzle. I hadn't even wanted to see, but now that I had, I couldn't unsee it. I needed proof not for revenge, but for myself to understand the truth fully. Then came the hardest part, facing him again. I couldn't keep my distance forever. I had to hear it from him directly one evening. I told him we needed to talk. He looked exhausted, like he knew this wasn't going to be easy. He asked me what about, and I said, everything I know. Every lie, every post, every staged moment. And he went silent for a moment before sighing. He admitted the truth. Again said, some things were for branding, some things were for content, some things were just because he liked the attention. I asked about Claire. He said it was complicated, and I realized it was worse than I imagined. Not just friendly networking, but flirtation and collaboration wrapped together into a story no one had asked for. I told him I couldn't trust him anymore. I needed to see if he could even be honest with me without the cameras or followers or likes. And he nodded quietly, like he finally understood how serious this was for me. I saw a crack in his confidence that night, like the mask he wore online was starting to crumble. I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Relief, because I finally had answers, and sadness, because the person I thought I knew had never really existed. I realized social media had become a wall between us, a world of illusions he had created that trapped both of us, and I had to decide whether I could live inside that wall or break it down and find myself again. That night, I stayed awake staring at my phone, scrolling through all the posts, again realizing that the picture-perfect life was nothing more than a story he told to the world, and maybe even to himself. I wondered if he could ever change, or if he would always need the stage, and I knew the next step was mine to take. Would you give someone a second chance after living a lie this big, or walk away and reclaim your life? After that night, I couldn't stop thinking about everything I had learned. I kept scrolling his accounts, looking for inconsistencies, and the more I looked, the more I realized the lie was bigger than just Claire, bigger than just staged posts. Every picture, every caption, every story was carefully curated. Even the friends he tagged, some didn't even know him personally. It was a network of illusions he had built to make himself look perfect. I started noticing sponsored posts, disguised as casual moments, vacations that never happened, dinners in restaurants that didn't exist. Even his followers' comments sometimes seemed fake, like bots, or accounts created to boost his image. It felt like I had been living in a carefully constructed bubble, and I was only just waking up. Then one night, I found something that made my chest tighten. A group chat screenshot he had accidentally left in his cloud. It was full of messages between him and several influencers. Claire included. They talked about collaborations, flirting strategies, creating content that looked authentic for followers. He even wrote about me, referring to me as aesthetic material. For posts I couldn't breathe, I felt like my heart was breaking all over again. I realized he had been using me not just in private, but in public, using our relationship as content, as material to grow his influence. Every smile, every hug, every dinner had been a performance, a scene in a show that I hadn't signed up for, and the worst part was how convincing he was, how easily I had been fooled because I had wanted to believe in him. The next day, I decided I had to confront him in a way he couldn't ignore. I couldn't just sit quietly while he built this online empire of lies. I told him I wanted to meet, and he seemed nervous, like he knew the walls I was tearing down were stronger than he could handle. I saw the first signs of fear in his eyes, and for the first time I felt power. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I needed clarity, I needed truth. I asked him why he kept doing this, why he needed to look perfect online, why he couldn't just live honestly with me. He said he didn't know how to be interesting. Otherwise, he said people love the illusion more than the real life. And I realized then that the world had become part of his lie, the audience, his followers. They had fueled him, and I had been a willing character in the performance. That night, I stared at all his posts, thinking about every trip, every smile, every story I had liked and commented on, and it felt like I had been living in someone else's dream. And I had to decide if I wanted to keep dreaming with him or wake up and step into reality on my own. If you discovered your partner was using your relationship as content for social media fame, would you expose them or cut ties quietly? I realized I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I couldn't scroll through his posts, smiling for the camera while my heart broke quietly. I needed to take control of my own life, of my own story, not be a character in someone else's social media fantasy. I started planning how I could confront him and make it clear that the lies had to stop. The first step was removing myself from the performance. I stopped reacting to his posts. I stopped liking his pictures. I stopped commenting, pretending everything was fine. I wanted him to feel the absence of me and the life he had built for likes and attention. I started focusing on myself, my own hobbies, my own friends, things I had ignored because he always wanted the perfect photo op. I began writing again, reading again, taking walks without thinking about capturing them for Instagram. Then came the confrontation. I asked him to meet at a cafe, somewhere neutral in public. I wanted witnesses, even if they didn't see our conversation. I wanted to feel grounded in the real world, not trapped in his staged one. When he arrived, he looked nervous but tried to smile. I didn't look at his eyes. I looked at him as someone I didn't know, as the person behind the mask. I told him everything I had uncovered, every staged post, every fake trip, every message to Claire and his network, every lie. I had proof of it all. I said I couldn't be part of this any longer. Not as a girlfriend, not as a muse, not as content. He tried to interrupt, saying it wasn't personal, that it was for branding. But I didn't let him. I said it's personal to me. It's my life, my heart, my trust, and you broke it. For the first time, he was silent. I could see him shrink in a way I hadn't expected. Maybe he realized for the first time that social media couldn't fix real life, that likes and comments couldn't undo the hurt he had caused. I felt a strange sense of relief that I was speaking my truth, and that for once I wasn't performing or pretending. That night I went home alone, but I didn't feel lonely. I felt awake to the reality I had ignored. Awake to myself. Awake to the fact that I didn't need someone else's performance to validate my worth. I decided to reclaim my life, to rebuild my story without filters, without captions, without fake smiles. I wanted to live authentically, even if it meant leaving the person I loved behind. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved to reclaim your own truth and reality? I couldn't keep all of this bottled up anymore. I needed to feel free. I needed to reclaim my voice, not just for myself, but for anyone else who might be caught in someone else's social media fantasy. I started documenting everything in detail, every message, every staged post, every lie I had uncovered. I made screenshots, timelines, everything laid out clearly like a map of the illusion he had built. Then I decided to tell a few close friends what had been happening. I didn't do it for drama, I did it for support. And to finally hear myself say the truth out loud, their reactions were mixed, shock, anger, disbelief, but they believed me, and that validation felt like a weight lifting from my chest. I realized I didn't have to carry this alone. I also realized I didn't need to post publicly online to expose him. The truth was mine to hold. I could use it as a shield to protect myself from ever being fooled again. I sent him a message saying I had all the evidence and that from now on I was walking away, that he could keep his online empire, but I wouldn't be part of it. The next few days, I felt a strange mix of sadness and liberation. Sadness for what I had lost and what had never really existed, and liberation because for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. I could breathe without thinking about the perfect smile for the camera, without worrying if his messages were real or staged. I could just be. I deleted the photos of us from my phone that weren't memories but props. I deleted comments I had left that were just applause for a performance. I unfollowed his accounts and stopped checking his posts. And for the first time, I felt peace in the silence. I realized that social media could never replace real love, real trust, and real honesty, and that I didn't need anyone else to validate my life. I also learned something else. The world might love illusions, but the truth always matters more to yourself. I had been living someone else's story, and now I had reclaimed mine. I felt stronger, braver, more aware, and I knew that while love could be beautiful, it could also be deceiving if it existed behind filters. I finally understood that I deserved authenticity, not perfection. Would you prioritize authenticity over love if the two were in conflict in your relationship? Weeks passed and I felt lighter, like I had finally stepped out of a shadow I didn't belong in. I spent mornings walking without checking my phone, evenings reading books that weren't Instagram guides. I started journaling, writing down my thoughts, feelings, dreams, everything I had ignored while living in someone else's story. I reconnected with friends I had pushed aside and made new ones who didn't judge or perform, who just were. Sometimes I thought about Ryan, about the smile he posted, the vacations, the captions, the illusion of love. I realized it wasn't hate I felt anymore, it was clarity. I understood that he had built a life for the world, not for me, and that was his choice. I could mourn the love I thought I had or celebrate the truth I now lived in. I chose truth. I also started creating my own content online, but it was different. No filters, no staged moments, no captions that made me pretend I was someone else. I shared real experiences, messy emotions, laughter, tears, small victories, nothing perfect, but it was me, and for the first time, the likes, comments didn't matter. What mattered was that I was living my life authentically and sharing it. Honestly, I met someone new, eventually someone who didn't need to post every moment online, someone who didn't use relationships as content, someone who could love and be loved without performance. I realized I didn't need a perfect life to be happy. I just needed a real one, and that was enough. Looking back, I realized what I'd learned. The social media lie had hurt me, but it had also taught me how to value myself, how to see beyond appearances, how to recognize authenticity and protect it. I wasn't naive anymore. I wasn't blinded by illusions I could love again, but I would never let someone else write my story or turn my heart into a post. And that's how I finally found myself in a world full of filters. I stepped out of his shadow into my own light, and for the first time I felt free to just be me. How would you reclaim your life and identity after being part of someone else's social media illusion?